goodness I did not pay to see this movie. Thank goodness I'm a speedster watcher and I was able to get through this movie in almost half the runtime. Thank you to the person who supplied me with the opportunity to do that, because
damn.
had I not the ability to speed through this freaking movie, I would have lost my mind. And I'm being so honest when I say that even though I watched it at more than double speed, it was still painfully boring. I'm not gonna say it's the worst movie out there, but then again, that's basically admitting it's in the same category as a movie. It's not. It just feels like a very eccentric LARPing session. So if you're on the fence whether or not I like this movie, the answer is I really dislike the movie. It is so forgettable, and if I didn't have to do this review, I would have forgotten about it. The only thing I remember is that stupid ending, and if you're asking me to find one positive thing about the movie, I guess it would be the little girl with the rabbit ears. So I'm not just gonna sit here and dog on the movie. I'm gonna try and put my thoughts together and say exactly why I think this movie was very bad, what made it very bad. Of course, there are people that have different opinions and different reasons for not liking the movie, but I want to be completely transparent, first of all, to let you all know that I am not a fan of Borderlands. It doesn't mean I hate Borderlands, I just never played the game. I never got around to playing it. I always liked the art style and it looked very intriguing, but it's not something that I was like eager to go play. So I'm coming at it from the perspective of someone who's not played the games and somebody who isn't a fan of the franchise. I'm just judging this movie as it should be judged, as a standalone.
Time to make it rain with your body parts.
So the opening of this movie still felt very generic, but I thought we were going to follow along the characters of Krieg, Roland, who is played by Kevin Hart, which is a very odd choice for this type of movie, to be honest, and the girl who is a key to everything, who they were supposed to be saving. Honestly, looking back at this movie, if this was a movie about Krieg and her, just the both of them, and him being able to protect her, and her being a wild card, you know, of course, yeah, it's going on the whole freaking Grogu and Mandalorian trope, but that would have been way more interesting. Even if it was all three of them, Roland, him, and the girl, I could understand. But then we get this middle-aged woman, and, okay, so, like I said, I've not watched I've not played the game, sorry. I've, like, looked at clips of them here and there, and people playing them, but I've not played the games at all. I don't really know the characters, so I'm guessing that a lot of these characters that we're seeing throughout the movie are based on actual characters of the game, and that's fine, and I don't know what those characters are supposed to look like, but the main character who's supposed to be Lilith, the red-haired person, the casting was just off for me. I mean, the writing is already deplorable, so it's not like the actors have much to work with, but she just came off feeling so heavily, like, macho, but not in a good way. It's like a cringe kind of way. You know Steven Seagal? My mom used to watch these movies with this old actor called Steven Seagal. Oh my god, I don't know why I hated that freaking actor with a passion. And not the actor per se, but the characters that he played. He was always, like, over the top and more full of himself than he should have been. And I'm like, bro, you were not you. No.
I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I don't know, man, you kind of remind me of my little brother. He always tried to do his best. I'm just doing mine.
Make it stop. Make it stop.
You see people like Jason Statham or Denzel Washington in The Equalizer do similar roles like that, and they do not come off with that level of cringe. And that's how Lilith came across. She's like, I'm a woman, I'm badass. Look at me and my smug look. I could body all you guys. I'm just gonna shoot people for the hell of it because you just annoyed me and I'm badass to show how badass I am. That is totally the energy it was giving, and right off the bat, it just put me the hell off. I was like, ew, stop. Look at this. She's like, look, I did that shit. Like, fuck off. Sorry, I know I tend to get very passionate in these reviews, but I'm just being freaking honest, man. I'm gonna try not to get angry because I don't want to have to be going through this again. I seriously don't get paid enough for this, I swear to God. So that was the first put off. The casting for her just felt very odd. I felt like it was meant to be for a younger character or somebody that had better acting. I don't know who the actress is, and I'm not saying that she was... Okay, her acting was bad in this. I'm gonna be completely, keep it a buck. It was really bad. I feel like the kid had better acting skills than this woman. This woman, Jamie Lee Curtis, she is Lilith's, why is she here? Like, I just don't understand the casting choices for these. It just felt like a family got together and they were like, Grandma, we need one more person and we don't have another person. You need to be this person. She's like, all right, I got you, okay. And like, no, Grandma, take the sweater out of your mouth. That's not what you're supposed to do. And she's like, what am I supposed supposed to do. And half the time in the scenes when they're running and stuff, it looks like she doesn't know what she's supposed to be doing. See, I'm gonna be honest, and maybe this is just me. I like anime guys and like doomer boys and stuff. The bartender though, I thought that was a guy at first. I was like, damn, you know, but I think it's a girl. Wait, no, hold on. It is... What the fuck? Okay, well, whatever. The bartender, like, if we had the bartender playing the same role, but the same energy and vibe that the bartender had, I would watch that just for the bartender. I know, I'm shallow. I know, I understand that. I completely accept that. It's not the first time I've accepted that. But yeah, it would be more alluring than whatever the hell Lilith is supposed to be. And whatever, the costume choices. The casting is one thing. The costume choices also... this is supposed to be colorful. And yes, the movie itself is colorful. It has a lot of saturation. But when you look at the actual Borderlands game with the cel-shaded aesthetic, I feel like there was a chance for them to do so much more. Also, I don't even understand why a live action movie of this was made. Whoa, wait a minute. Yo, why is bro's business in the streets? Interesting. And no, I'm not a... Okay, the lighting was on, never mind, whatever, it doesn't matter, that's not important to this freaking review. So aside from this woman being insufferable, especially at the beginning when she's showing off and trying to drive home that she's badass and that bitch, and giving us those totally Steven Seagal vibes, or like Will Smith when he tries to play a serious character that's badass, it just fell very flat for me, and it set the wrong mood for this movie. That bartender though. So yeah, it's like you gave a bunch of old guys a Borderlands trailer for the game, and they're like, all right, we're gonna make a movie on this. And they only have their pool of friends to choose from, and then they spat this movie out. The other issue with this movie is that it had no depth whatsoever. It was so superficial. Lilith is supposed to be along with these guys to save this girl, bring her back to her father, but then they figure out her father is trying to use her to open up some vault. You would think that we would get a proper backstory or see more human interactions between all the characters. You never see that. It doesn't feel like any of them are actually close to each other. Like they're crying over Roland having sacrificed himself, but then it's like, oh, he's fine, and they forget about him in the next. There's no substance. And if you just say, well, the movie is based on action, that's all you're getting, even the action is stupid. Aside from a few of the scenes, like the little girl throwing the teddies at people, the rest of it feels so generic, and half the time you can't really make out what's going on. Maybe it was just me. And to be sure, in some of the fight scenes, I slowed it down, and there's just so much cuts. Look, I know this is the modern way of filming things, but there are other movies that make the cuts, even if there's a plethora of them, look at least coherent. But this movie felt like it was edited by 300 different people. It felt really disjointed, but again, at least they're consistent, because that's what the rest of the movie feels like. You don't care about any of the characters. If something were to happen to them, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. The characters are forgetful. Even Lilith is forgetful. She's not particularly likable either. And then, to talk about unlikable characters, on top of all of that, we have the freaking robot. I've seen footage of him from the games, and he looks a lot more likable, and his voice is a lot more tolerable than what we see in the movie. And my voice is annoying, so that's me saying this. But in the movie, he's just constantly frenetic to the point of complete exasperation. Who would look at a trailer like this, okay, after they threw him in there, and look at these people and be like, man, I want to watch this movie? I mean, the people of all the age group people here, I mean, that's not even something I gather most of the people in this age range would watch. Is Borderlands a franchise that has been around for a very long time, from like old Super Nintendo days or something? Because I could kind of understand if they're trying to draw from those people, but if it's a fairly modern franchise, who exactly was this for? If they were trying to put it as a bunch of parents that come from some screwed up situations where they lost all their families, get together and form a gang, at least the backstory would have made a little bit more sense or been way more interesting. But if you're gonna have this type of cast, at least relate to them. I mean, when Kevin Hart started the movie Jumanji, that made a lot more sense with him and The Rock. Those characters felt like they had way more depth and more realistic human interactions, and actually felt like they were a group of people working together. It makes sense, and the story also makes sense as well. But that was a comedy that actually had some truly good elements in it, and the action was way better. This felt like it was trying to be that, or felt like it was trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy, and fail so epically. It's like someone trying to cheat off of your paper, and they're so bad at even doing that. The little doodles that you did in the corner when you're waiting for the test, you know, the test period to be finished, they even drew those too, thinking it was part of the test. That's how dumb this movie came across. The jokes also, maybe it was meant to be funny and lighthearted. I didn't find one thing funny in this. I know the robot's meant to be comic relief. He wasn't funny. He was annoying. Their interactions with each other are meant to be comic relief. Oh, is it? It was annoying. Her being smug and stoic, meant to be comedic relief in response to other people trying to be funny, it was boring. It's just cringe. It's like, oh my god, stop. The way she's acting like somebody, and I don't mean to be like ageist or anything, but she's acting like, never mind.
Just say it!
She feels like somebody who is trying to play the role of a woman meant to be between her 20s and 30s and failing at it. And I know that sounds really bad because I'm not saying that people her age range can't feel themselves. But if you're gonna have a cringe character and the movie writing is horrible, the casting is horrible, and then you're gonna have them doing this, it makes it worse. You know what I get when I see this? An actress that doesn't know that she's gotten older. Oh my god, what a horrible thing to say. Okay, whatever. Like, okay, you're supposed to play the role of this much younger person. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what it's coming off as. And she walks into school like those old movies where the adults try to infiltrate a high school and pretend that they were a kid, and they come in very obviously looking like some 45-year-old trying to blend in with kids. That's kind of how this came across to me. It might not be for everyone, and I'm not saying she's ugly or anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. It just, the whole package is just bad. If her being in it is actually part of the joke, then they did her dirty. Not to mention, what the hell is even this hairstyle? She looks even older in some situations. It just looks really bad. It looks really freaking bad. I feel like if they cast the woman who played Cersei, it would have been way more appealing because I think they're in the same age range, or she was back then or whatever. And it would have made way more sense, especially given how diabolical this woman is. She wears that look a lot better than most people. But then again, she was a villain, so it actually fit. So it probably would have been just as cringe if she tried to be the supposed hero or anti-hero wearing that face. As much as I hate her smug look and I hate her character, she looks better with that look. Then again, this movie is so piss poor that it probably wouldn't have mattered who they cast in it. It would have been just as bad. The villain was superficial and forgettable. But oh good lord, as if everything else wasn't embarrassingly bad enough, we have the ending and the twist. And it's that she was the key to everything in the first place, and she has these superpowers that were never even... None of her backstory even, oh my god, I can't, like, I'm losing brain cells even trying to explain what this script was, what this movie was. She's supposed to save the little girl because the little girl's a key to the vault, and you supposedly die if you activate the vault if you're the key. Turns out that she was a daughter of Iridia or whatever, and now she has these powers, and she does this dumbass T-pose thing, and these plasma angel wings come out from her back, and she's like, I'm super special now. I'm gonna do an anime scene where the ship's guns or lasers are shooting at her, and she makes this force field of power that leads back up to the ship and blows it up and takes it down while she's still like flying with her wings. And there's no lead up to this. Absolutely no lead up to it. First of all, her character's unlikable, and then when you throw her into the mix with all these other characters that are, I know, as strange as the sound, are way more interesting than her. She's pushed into the background, but now supposedly she's more important than everyone. She's all Captain Marvel, has no weakness. Nobody has any weakness, as a matter of fact. I mean, the little girl has a weakness, so she was a little bit more intriguing because when she got into her father and how she felt about the whole thing, I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, sort of. And then that's just completely cut away. We have this woman, Lilith, who has a very painful backstory of her mom giving her to Jamie Lee Curtis to raise, who then abandoned her to go figure out and finish the studies that her mom was trying to do, which made no sense because that was the only parents you had. But then you'd think that this girl would be harboring a lot of anger. You never once see her lean into that. It's like she's void of any emotion. It's like she's so emotional. So remember the Acolyte, how that woman's face looked? This was her face in the entirety of the freaking Acolyte show. It's as if their face is made of Tupperware, and if it bends a little bit too much, it will eventually crack. So for the conclusion of this movie, she becomes Super Saiyan and saves all her friends, but There was never any growth. We didn't see her go through any particularly hard times. She was just a tough badass the entire time, and now she's like epic badass, which the reason why this is lost on people is because there was no challenges there. It's gonna be hard for us to relate to someone who didn't have any challenges. Even in the one challenge she had with missing her mom or needing that part of the backstory, it was just so half-heartedly mentioned as exposition and just left on the back burner that you had a very good opportunity to give us something to relate to the character about, and you couldn't even do that. So now when this happens, and then she teams up with a little girl after the guy takes the little girl hostage, and she shaves the little girl, and the little girl beats up this fully grown guy, we're supposed to somehow be cheering for them. There's no payoff. There was nothing for us to wait for. There was no mystery. There was no story. It was just characters that were thrown together who didn't even really seem to care about each other. It didn't feel as though they cared about each other's safety that much. And the only bit, like I said, interaction that I felt was the least bit intriguing enough for me to have wished that this was a movie about those specific characters was the psycho guy and the bunny ear girl. We didn't even get a proper backstory for him, or for Roland either for that matter. I can almost guarantee that by tomorrow I would have forgotten everybody's names. So you may be asking, then what would have made the movie better? Those are all the things or issues that I have with the movie, but what would have made the movie better? Well, first of all, if it had never been made. I can't believe I'm saying this, but not everything is meant to be a movie. Also, I really do believe that if they really wanted to make something, they should have outsourced it to Japan or something. They would have come up with an anime that was way better than this. I probably can bet you, one of your ass cheeks, that they have an anime out there that is basically Borderlands, but way better than this. I feel so sorry for the people who spent money to watch this. I don't know who suckered you into doing that. And if there's anybody out there who genuinely enjoyed this movie, please let me know, because you are a case study. And I'm not saying that you can enjoy things, but people are allowed to enjoy things, but I legitimately want to look inside your head and be you for a second. Also, I would question if you were under the influence of anything. I'm kidding. If you generally liked the movie because it was a good time and you're like, I like stupid movies like this, and that's okay. However, it's one of the worst movies I've seen. It is not the worst, but it is one of the worst. And I'm saying, like, next to things like The Amazing Bulk, I mean, at least The Amazing Bulk was, okay, that was just a special kind of stupid, but they made it stupid on purpose. That movie cost almost nothing to make.
I'll be confused with the enemy.
I'm afraid I wasn't telling the truth, Henry.
There is no antidote.
What do you mean?
I shit you not, that is literally scenes from the movie The Amazing Bulk. I actually did a review on that. And there are a lot of things that I can finish no matter how bad that they are. This wasn't one of them. I think my brain like spazzed out the last 10 minutes or so. I just, no. Anyway, if you're looking for something of any substance, you're not gonna find it here. If you want to spend your money because you like pain and you like to punish yourself, then do this to yourself. That is the perfect way. If you get off on that, you're gonna get a super boner for this movie because good lord. If really cringy things turn you on, this whole movie will have you edging, I swear. I don't even think this movie warrants getting high for. Yet, no. I would watch a whole movie with this guy though, because he reminds me of that dude from, I'm gonna get his name wrong, I know it. And they made a lot of machinimas of it. Tiny, like, okay, there was Pyro, okay, and there's the Boston guy, and then there's a really big guy with a machine gun named Tiny, I think. Whatever. Anyway, and he sounds Russian. Well, regardless, this guy reminds me of the Pyro guy, and it was cool because for that trailer, you see what's going on inside of his head, and Noir from The Boys kind of has the same thing going on. That would be interesting if they made a movie about that. Kevin Hart was wasted in this. He literally ate that check and shat it out. I'm still baffled at the casting choice for him and for her, for Jamie Lee Curtis. Good lord, what were you doing? But yeah, go back and make a movie about this guy. Just like take out everybody else and just have the movie with this guy. And then he's a psycho killer. And then he meets this little girl that kind of has the same backstory that he does. He sees how she's being treated and he's like, you know what? I hate things, but I don't know. Something about this person, I just can feel a kinship with them because they went through what I went through, but we're different. And she's like his voice. And she's explosive, but he's also a badass berserker. And she's like, yeah, you're not going to mess with me. And it's just him and her. And even though there's a language barrier because he can't exactly talk that well, or, well, he does talk. That's the thing. You forget that this guy actually speaks, but he's obviously like not fully mentally developed, which I think would work for the movie. But then that wouldn't be Borderlands, would it? I doubt it would be. That would be a completely different movie. If they wanted to make something like that, they could have made that. Oh dear God. I would rather watch Mila Jovovich, and that wig is not wigging. Embarrassing. Who made this movie? I didn't want to look up anything. I know you guys are like, why don't you know the answers to all these things? Because when I'm making a review, I want to just go straight from watching the movie, go straight to making the review because I don't want anything to spoil or taint, sorry. I don't want anything to taint my view of the movie by looking at other things and being like, oh, well, that makes sense. Now I feel this way because I've taken in this other information. I want to just give my honest opinion as it is seen. But now, Eli Roth. The name is familiar. That's Eli Roth. He looks like the sexy guy Skyler from this old show I'd found years ago called Heroes. Yeah, this guy. Whatever happened to him? Anyway, the resemblance is just, whatever. Okay, so this makes sense. This guy has done horror and splatter films. He directed Cabin Fever and Hostel. Dude, what are you doing with this type of movie? Who thought that it was a good idea to be like, okay, Eli Roth, you did all of those. We're gonna have you direct the Borderlands? Like, what? How did you jump from that to this? And see, it's not just me. This is a question I stumbled upon. Zachary Quinto, they really do look alike. All right, good old Metacritic. And yeah, it's so interesting to see that the critics and the audiences are actually very on par with each other. I think on Rotten Tomatoes, funny enough, the critics actually rate it lower than the audience. And just for some fun, let's look at some of the reviews. Worse than I imagined it could be, and I was not expecting much from this type of movie. And yes, I played Borderlands. The actors will not be bragging about being in this movie. They're probably embarrassed, but using a huge pile of cash to cover their shame. The person who wrote it rated it a 10, Allah, he said, I'm just a troll. Oh, he's seen much worse this year. Oh my God. Putting it was good. It was good. Doesn't really make it a 7, but okay. Someone said the Borderlands movie was a huge disappointment. It completely missed the mark on what makes the game so much fun. The story dragged and felt all over the place, and the characters, who were usually the heart and soul of the franchise, were reduced to boring, flat versions of themselves. The humor, which is supposed to be sharp and witty, just didn't land, making the whole experience feel forced and dull. Visually, the movie didn't even come close to capturing the unique style of the games. Instead of the vibrant, chaotic world of Pandora, we got something that felt bland and uninspired. Overall, it was a missed opportunity that failed to do justice to the source material. It was horrible. Bro, even without the source material, it was terrible. Like I said, I didn't play the games, and this shit was disgusting. It's gonna go in the catalog with like the live-action Mario movie and all those other horrible gaming movies that are so bad that they're good, or so people say. And it's gonna be at the bottom of the pile of those. Jack Black played Claptrap. Really? Really? Jack Black, what are you doing, man? Ugh. Anyways, those are my honest thoughts. I mean, I could be a lot more harsh, but honestly, I don't think that this movie is worth that effort.